order, please. If all who care to join me stand, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so Mary Beth is not here, and then Karen, and in case you're watching, Karen, I just want to tell you that we miss you, and we hope that you feel better soon. The board norms: debate, commentary, and discussion are healthy and open. Listening and speaking are equally important, and both should be done with respect and consideration. Focus is on students and our schools, not politics. Assume best intentions in all discussions. If I could please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I would entertain a motion to remove the memo from Superintendent Reed dated November 12th regarding winter coaching nominations due to an error.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would entertain another motion to accept the memo from Superintendent Reed dated December 7th, 2025 regarding winter coaching nominations for the 2025-2026 season.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And a last motion, please, to accept the addendum to the personnel memorandum dated December 9th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak tonight? No one signed up? No? Okay. And moving on to the student rep reports.
At the intermediate school in November, the 5th grade students were able to participate in Starbase. Starbase is an exciting, hands-on STEM program designed to spark curiosity and build foundational skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The opportunity provides students to step out of the traditional classroom and into an immersive learning environment where they experiment, design, build, test, and collaborate, all while having a lot of fun. We're working jointly with Stafford to have our students at RAS read with students from STC. Each week, partners will get together to read and do an activity together. We're excited for this collaboration and the opportunities to work with students across the district. As we head into the holiday season, we want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our wonderful community for its continued generosity and support. Because of you, we're able to offer many helpful resources to our students. We truly appreciate everything you do to support our school, especially during this time of year. Students at RAS Tapestry are embracing healthy and active living with walks to Giorgetti for ice skating and new outdoor game rotations during recess. Our community partner, Clover Exploration, is also engaging students in creative STEM challenges using Lego robotics and everyday materials. At Northeast, November warmed our hearts with so many community events at Northeast. From our Northeast Northwest STEAM Day at the Rutland Rec Center to our 2nd grade concert, grocery bingo, and our annual Thanksgiving luncheon with our families, we feel extra lucky to be part of such a wonderful community. 1st grade also had a great field trip to the Billings Farm just before Thanksgiving break. The Northeast PTC is excited to share another fundraising opportunity tomorrow night, Wednesday, December 10th, where a portion of the proceeds from dining at Applebee's will go toward our fundraiser for a book vending machine. The book vending machine will help promote the joy of reading at home and school for all students. December will be a quieter month at Northeast, but there is still a lot of meaningful work happening in our building. Our character trait focus on creativity is sparking fresh ideas in classrooms as students explore new ways to express themselves and solve problems. We also want to highlight the incredible work of our counseling team, who have been actively organizing holiday assistance and support for our families in need. Though our events schedule is lighter, the heart of our school community continues to shine brightly. We hope everyone has a safe, healthy, and happy holiday break. The Northeast Tapestry team is offering a special extended hours program on Friday, December 12th. While students enjoy a festive celebration of different holidays, including dinner, games, a movie, and a special guest, families will have extra time for errands or a night out. And Northwest. November was a busy and exciting month at Northwest. Our second grade students wrapped up their most recent Lifetime Sports unit. They traveled to the Rutland Bowlerama where they learned the basics of bowling. This hands-on experience was a great way to teach them a fun, lifelong sport. We're thrilled that the Lifetime Sports program, which runs at both Northwest and Northeast, was recently highlighted in the Rutland Herald. If you haven't checked it out yet, we encourage you to do so. The highlight of the month was our wonderful school-wide community Thanksgiving meal, bringing everyone together. Students, staff, and our wonderful colleagues across the district, including our dedicated bus drivers and maintenance team, all enjoyed a delicious lunch. It was wonderful to see the community spirit with staff jumping in to plate and serve students right at their seats, a treat for the students. A big heartfelt thank you goes out to all Northwest staff, and especially our genuine colleagues, for making this lunch such a huge success. We are also excited to report that our recent Holidays Dips fundraiser was a big success. The participation was incredible, and the proceeds will be used to increase enrichment opportunities. We plan to use these funds to visit the Paramount Theater later this winter and early spring to enjoy one of the performances from their enrichment series. We'd like to thank our families and the larger community for all of your support. The Northwest Tapestry team is inspired by many student leaders. This month, 12 students are planning and running activities for their peers. One highlight is that a student-created math and matching game using Uno cards proudly taught to Tapestry friends.
From Stafford Technical Center, Stafford held its annual career night last week for prospective students and their families. The event was well attended. The goal of the evening was to help students and their families make an informed decision as to whether Stafford is a good fit for their college and career plans. The priority application date for the 2026-2027 school year is December 15. The Regional Advisory Board of Stafford has given its support for Stafford Technical Center to recognize students each year with the Service with Integrity Award. This recognition will be for students who complete community service within their community and as a part of their program at Stafford. Previously, we had worked with the President's Volunteer Service Award to recognize students, but it was paused in May of 2025. Our faculty and staff felt that this was a critical piece of our school culture and are appreciative of the Regional Advisory Board members who supporting the continuation of this recognition of our students. For Rutland Middle School, we just administered our second FastBridge assessment. We are happy to see growth for many of our students. The top 5 students who made the biggest gains will be celebrated next week. Our outdoor adventure class offers students meaningful opportunities to engage in physical activity and explore the community's active spaces. Through this program, students are introduced to a variety of physical activities that they may not have tried otherwise. Each experience is documented through personal journal reflections and scrapbook entries, allowing students to process their learning and create a lasting record of their adventures. Our Wellness in the Wilderness class is working on executive functioning, self-esteem, and fostering positive peer relationship while cross-country skiing. We are gearing up for our lifelong sports program. This 6 weeks program begins on Thursday, January 8th. A huge shout out to Abby Bennett for her commitment to making this possible to our students, as well as to all the local businesses that go out of their way to host our students. Rutland High School. Rutland High School was pleased to host the Vermont Senate Education Committee last week. 4 members of the committee toured Stafford Tech and then visited AP classes, learned about our PLACE program, and alternative ed classroom, and the Grove Street program. They shared that they were very impressed with all that RCPS has to offer. The fall sports season ended successfully, with all of our students representing their school well. The winter season is just underway, with practices having now begun. Rutland Middle School Epic. Students are exploring sustainable fashion through repurposing and repairing thrifted clothing. An entrepreneurial group is learning Cricut technical and design skills in preparation for student-created apparel projects in the new year. In December, students will also cook items to donate to community organizations and school staff. Rutland High School Epic. We are thankful that tutoring opportunities are now expanding as we transition into 2026. We are also collaborating with community partners to launch new financial literacy and health career exploration programs beginning in January.
Thank you. Anyone, any questions for our student reps? What's going on? Well, thank you very much for your reports. Okay.
Nice springboard for my report. As you heard from Amelia, our students from Northeast and Northwest primary schools were together for a day of science, technology, engineering, art, and math, also known as STEAM, on November 14th. The day was carefully planned to maximize learning opportunities for all of our students. So in addition to staff-led stations that kids went through, students also engaged in activities that were offered by some of our community partners. So I'd like to recognize Clover Explorations, Wonder Feet, Rutland Free Library, Rutland Robotics, the Vermont Energy Efficiency Program, and Come Alive Outside, and also the Rec Department for hosting in the space at the community center. So I have a brief video to share that was created by Laura Apriliano. Laura is one of our primary teachers at Northeast. So, although kids have a countless opportunities to practice STEAM concepts throughout the day, it really is a Herculean effort to pull together both sides of the city to have all of our K through second graders together. Special thanks to Laura Priliano, who led the way with support from STEAM leader in Northwest, Gail Campopiano. You heard already, and it was in the Rutland Herald, that the Senate Ed Committee came on Friday. They, as Amelia said, they visited campuses, the Stafford Technical Center, had tours there and at the high school. Then we went by school van to visit Pierpoint Personalized Learning Center, as well as our Grove Street campus and Allen Street campus. We had staff that came and presented different programs and opportunities that we offer our students both before and after school. And then the day concluded with an opportunity for public comment. And so I want to thank the Senate Ed Committee for coming to us. They were dedicated to learning about the vibrant and complex systems that we offer, as well as others in the state. We were part of a section of the greater goal of learning about programs within the state. Then the last piece that I have tonight shines a spotlight on another RCPS staff. This past summer, I submitted a nomination to the American Association of School Administrators for Melissa Connor to receive an award of Women in Leadership, as the award recognizes female administrators whose talent, creativity, and vision are exemplary. Without Melissa knowing, the staff were asked if they might submit letters of support for the nomination. We expected a couple of people would step forward. However, the response was far beyond what we expected, with just about every staff member, submitting stories, vignettes, and letters on her behalf. Unfortunately, the AASA did not select Melissa. However, the staff compiled their sentiments into this book and presented it to Melissa, who's clearly deserving of the award. I asked Melissa if I could share her nomination and with the book tonight, and she's granted permission only because she's not here. So I'll pass it around so that you can take a look, but there's lots of great messages to the well-deserving Melissa Connor. Thank you. That's all I have.
Congratulations, Melissa.
Yes. Okay. Melissa's not here, but
Ted and Kate are going
Ted
to
and Kate
take the show.
Since Melissa's not here, she promised me this would be easy, so.
That is what she said.
She did. She's good.
I can do this report.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are asking the board to entertain the two motions that we've enclosed to ratify our Stafford budget for the FY27 fiscal year, as well as accepting our Perkins funds. We presented to the school board, Melissa and I, November 12th to go over our full budget presentation, and then met with our regional advisory board December 3rd, and they approved what we submitted to them, and now it's the final stages. So the motions are in your packet.
So moved?
So, I will entertain a motion to accept the federal Carl D. Perkins grant for fiscal year 27 for use and support of the operation of Stafford Technical Center with an anticipated award amount of $343,049.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Congrats.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the fiscal year 27 Stafford Technical Center budget as presented with total expenditures of $7,408,618, resulting in a total tuition of $23,205.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So easy.
Thank you.
That was a lot of pressure, thanks.
I know there was a lot of work involved in those two short motions, so thank you
You're right.
very
Yeah.
much. Okay, moving to budget.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you briefly about our proposed fiscal 27 budget. We did revise some charts from your original board package, so hopefully you found a copy at your seat this evening. Tonight's review is going to focus on the outlook for total expenditures next year. When we return in January, we'll add an update on the anticipated revenues as well as pupil metrics. And those pupil metrics are being finalized this month with AOE. I'll also offer you a few comments about the December 1, bless you, a few comments about the December 1 tax letter that was issued by the Department of Taxes. There's some good news in that letter, actually, that has not received a whole lot of press coverage so far, and I'll touch upon that for you. It won't be a surprise, I hope, that our goals for developing the fiscal 27 budget focused on assessing staffing and funding needed to deliver excellent educational programs for all students next year, while also, of course, doing so based on a budget that is reasonable and responsible for the coming year, and very importantly, which reflects a cost structure that will be sustainable over the long term. So if we turn to chart 2, just give you a brief overview. The short story is the proposed budget would increase our total expenses by 3.9% in the coming year. As you might know, that's about 1 percentage point higher than what general inflation is running today. Our budget, of course, reflects higher salary costs based upon recent labor agreements, higher health care costs, as well as higher food costs. Where possible, we're attempting to hold certain cost categories flat year to year, as we'll see on another chart in a couple of minutes. We also anticipate steady staffing from year to year. We're still working on the details of some of the positions to be included in the FY27 budget, but we anticipate staffing to remain in the same general range of just under 500 full-time employees that we've been budgeting for in recent years. Another point you'll see there in terms of project work, you've heard us talk about the need to replace the district's aging phone system, and our budget does provide to continue that important work in the coming year. We are anticipating, as you might recall, that federal funding will be lower in fiscal 27 than this year. The key question remains, however, how much lower? So we're working on those assumptions and estimates in the coming weeks, and we'll review our final assumptions and estimates with you in January. Are there any questions or comments about that overview?
The total expenses, you're saying the overall increase in expenses is 3.9%, and that includes salaries?
And compensation.
Okay.
It's a pleasant surprise, isn't it? I'll show you some of the details in a moment. Let's talk, before we move on to those details, though, let me talk with you about the tax letter. The preliminary, and I think it's beneficial if we start and focus first on what we know. And what we know is the letter indicated that the preliminary property yield for 27 is going to increase by 3% over the yield for this year. That's a good news story. Now, it's only a preliminary yield, because the official yield is not going to be set by the legislature until the spring. But looking at this preliminary yield, if we had had the new yield for 27 for this year, our tax rate for 26 actually would have been a few cents lower than it is. And that's because, as you probably know, a higher yield will tend to reduce property taxes or mitigate increases. So again, it's very likely that that's going to change, and all current estimates of tax rates and property rates are contingent to yield and CLA to be issued later this month, and a variety of other factors that you're familiar with, but so far so good. And I don't think that's gotten a whole lot of attention. Now, what of course has gotten a lot of attention is the tax letter's headline that forecasts a 12% average increase in Vermont property taxes next year. And there are really a couple of points to make about that. Although we're still very early in the tax preparation cycle, the state law does require that the Commissioner of Taxes every year develop certain estimates by December 1 and distribute those estimates, which are needed for the budgeting process. Preparing these estimates at such an early point is no easy task. And as a result, quite often these estimates can be off the mark, as we work several months through the process. But it's really interesting to note, if for those people who did read all the way through the letter And if you get to page 3, you'll see that the letter has a very important qualification, and it points out that these estimates vary considerably from town to town, and they're just estimates. That's a really important acknowledgement. And in fact, for ourselves here in Rutland City, our results in recent years have been much more favorable than the statewide averages that have been mentioned in these letters. And let me just give you an example. In last year's letter for fiscal '26, the letter projected an increase in homestead property taxes of 5.9, almost 6%, from '25 to '26. Well, here in Rutland City, our tax rate actually went down almost 4%. Our tax rate dropped from $1.67 to $1.61. So whereas the letter was signaling an increase in property taxes, our rate actually went down. Another interesting thing about last year's letter is it said that it looked like a 3-year average in tax rates from fiscal '23 to fiscal '26 was going to go up by 33%. Property taxes, statewide average across Vermont. If you look at what the tax rate did for Rutland City homestead, it was up 2.5%, less than 1/10 of that rate. So again, they're statewide estimates, they're required to be provided by law, but they're not necessarily an accurate indication of where our results are likely to go. And in fact, in our case, they've been misleading in recent years. So again, I just want to focus everybody's attention on the fact that, we stay diligently attentive to developing an excellent education program that's based on budgets that you've heard us say are reasonable, responsible, and sustainable. And although I don't have all the numbers that we'll need to make a projection, I do not anticipate that Rutland City taxpayers are going to see anything approaching a 12% increase year to year, and we'll be able to give you a more definitive signal on that when we see you again in January. So don't go borrowing trouble. Any questions about that overview of the tax letter? Okay, great. Let's get into some of the details then of our expense estimates. So, as I mentioned to you, the overall increase that we're anticipating for next year is just under 4%, 3.9, about 2.6 million. And what you see here is it shows you the 26 budget in blue. Then it shows you the proposed FY27 budget in green and some dollar changes and some percentage changes. And what this is doing is showing you by some major categories of expense. In terms of compensation, that's going to go up, we expect, by about $1.6 million, about 3%. You might have anticipated a higher percentage increase based on some other things going on, but there are some mix effects with our staffing, and we've had some employees who were at the higher end of the salary scale retire, replaced by lower paid employees. So there's many different mix effects going on here, which when we've looked at it position by position, person by person, the details have added up to a much more manageable increase in compensation than we might have anticipated without these details. Direct instructional costs, that's a line that it's excluding salaries and benefits, and it reflects school budgets and programs like Tapestry, for example. You'll notice what looks year to year like a pretty significant increase, and that is, but I might point out to you, for those who have been on the board for a while, our '25 budget for direct instructional actually was $3.7 million. Which was only about 4% lower than what we're projecting for '27. What we did in trying to cut costs last year and to trim costs was we cut this direct instructional line back by several $100,000. Come to find out with our experience, that was fairly aggressive, and so we're trying to return it more to the 3.7, 3.8 range that I think will be better suited for our programs. This does include some increases, by the way, that are grant funded. So, for example, of that $460,000 increase you see there, budget to budget, $100,000 of that is for expansion of our after-school Tapestry programs, which is a good news thing. That's a very important program to us, and that increase is going to be tax funded. So, on that line alone, $100,000 of that increase won't flow to the taxpayer, and there's some other categories like that. Building, grounds, and transportation, you'll see that's up a bit. You know, these costs year to year, buildings and grounds have typically run between $2 and $2.5 million, just depending upon the nature of the projects we have in a given year. We try and spread that out as best we can. We work closely with Glenn. This year's proposed budget for '27 includes some very important safety upgrades that the building committee and yourselves have seen and approved. For example, an elevator modernization, a fire alarm modernization, and each one of those are $150,000. So many other projects are in here, and where we've been able to cut some costs in buildings, grounds, and transportation, we've done that to try and keep it manageable. But again, this is going to be a function of the projects that need to be done at a given point in time in order to maintain the integrity and the safety of our operations. Food service costs, you'll see, that's up 18%. Now, 14% of that increase reflects the fact that we rebid and we negotiated a new contract. The other 4% is anticipated higher food costs in fiscal '27. I would say to you that while that almost $300,000 increase is material and significant, it's money very well spent, because I think if you were to ask any of the principals and administrators around the school district, many people are very pleased with the quality of the service and the food that we're getting. And another thing that I'll point out is the food service comes out of a fund that, again, involves many federal credits and grants. So that 287 is one of those cost increases that will not flow down to the local taxpayer. That's handled through federal grants and credits. So, you know, we pay attention to the costs, of course, but, you know, that's a good news story in many respects. The financing is going down because a 5-year note that we had several years ago to finance the acquisition of 4 buses matures. That drops off, so our costs are going down by that annual note. IT, relatively stable, 3% increase. Utilities, were being a little bit optimistic or aggressive here by trying to hold it flat. But for those of you who follow the energy markets, you'll know that, you know, at the beginning of this year, crude oil prices were about $80 a barrel, and they're currently $60. So they're down about 25%, and many other petroleum-based products are falling. Now, we do not attempt to forecast what energy prices are going to be. We simply project our costs based upon what they are today and assume that that's going to be the case going forward. We are experiencing higher electricity prices, but the drop in oil and heating oil prices that we're seeing is probably going to offset some higher costs for electricity and for wood pellets, so we're going to try and hold that flat. We originally were thinking that we'd budget more money for the phone project in '27, but we've got money, as you know, for '26, and we're going to push some of that work likely into '28. So that's not a reduction in cost, but more a timing and a balancing of when contractors are available. And then other costs, we're holding that as best we can. We're assuming zero inflation in some of these costs. We do have a few additional costs for third-party services that are causing this increase here. But once again, although, you know, inflation is likely to be running in the 3% range, when we forecast, we typically try to assume that we're going to find some efficiencies to offset inflation. So when you add these costs up, you know, it looks like we'd come in at just under $70 million, a $2.6 million increase, or about 3.9%. So I'll stop there and ask if you have questions or comments. Well, okay, that concludes my presentation for tonight. And if you do have any questions afterwards, you know where to find me, and I'm always happy to provide additional details as may be helpful to you. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Ted.
Okay, moving to board and committee reports. Ryan, do you want to tell us about the policy committee?
Yes, absolutely. So we met on, what day was it? Thank you. November 18th. At 5:40 was when we officially started. A little late, but that's okay. Went through 2 policies that we're sending to first reading. First one is we're actually reclassifying the use of video surveillance cameras because it doesn't just apply to students, it applies to everybody. So it's going to be under business operations now. Besides that, a loss or destruction of district property was reviewed, and that's about it. Our next meeting is this upcoming Tuesday. What's that? The 16th at 5:30.
And that is going to be actually a policy governance info session
Okay, cool.
on Tuesday night. Jeannie Collins, who is the VSBA's consultant for policy governance, will be here for 2 hours. Dinner will be served.
Yes.
And so hopefully everyone can make it. So can I have a motion to move policy 7411 and 7420 to second reading?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So I'm up next with the VSBA and Legislative Action Committee report. We met on November 18th, and Maggie Lenz, who's a political consultant, she follows what's going on in Montpelier in the education world. So she came and spoke to us. Well, she spoke to us via Zoom. And she predicted in that meeting that the redistricting task force would move forward with a cooperative service model. And that's where schools, areas would share costs and resources. Sort of like a supervisory union, sort of, like functions now, where
It would allow us,
Resources are
it would
pooled.
encourage us to work together to pool our resources.
yeah, and costs. So, and she talked about our worry with that would be with that type of model that we would get pushed into a supervisory union structure. But that remains to be seen. There's been no map that's been proposed as of yet. The task force's official report called for voluntary mergers. So, you know, if any schools around we had conversations and we decided that's something we wanted to do, that made sense, then we're free to go forward with that, basically. Would you agree that's about category?
Currently, there's a whole bunch of requirements in order for school districts to merge, including a public vote from the joining. But we'll have to see if they change that to make it easier. Right now, it is, it's quite a task to merge districts.
So we also know that the governor was not a fan of their report. He basically said the task force failed. And so the legislators are, of course, free not to follow the task force's advice and come up with a map and or a structure that they feel would work best for Vermont. Maggie let us know last week, I think it was, that the governor's chief of staff has laser focus on a single CTE district model. So all of the technical schools would be in a district. And not sure what that would mean for everybody else, but that would significantly change everything, really. So she is urging us, if and when the legislators make known exactly what direction they're going, that we all email the Senate Ed committee members requesting or asking for financial modeling, that we want to see what it would look like financially. And Ted indicated that indeed the AOE does have enough information to be able to model any scenario that the legislators might propose. So stay tuned for more info on that. We'll get some messaging that we can all use to make it easy and a contact list. And we just have to, we have to really advocate to get that modeling. Is there anything you want to add to that? No. Yeah, so more info regarding messaging and a contact list to come. That's all I have on that. Any questions about? Okay. So no action on that. Now we have Stephanie and Jen giving us a report on EG.
We do?
Not necessarily on PG, but more on the work
on what's-
plan.
yeah.
Oh, the work.
Oh, I'm sorry, the work plan.
Okay.
It says policy governance on the agenda, so I thought it was.
I think work plan is next. It's a different,
Oh, it is,
it's
yeah.
under unfinished business.
Unfinished business.
So what is C then?
So I think
Board
policy
report.
governance would be us meeting with Jeannie next.
I think we're going to talk.
That's, I already talked about that, so
Correct.
we're just gonna call that done.
Oh, okay.
So policy governance is simply that we have an information session scheduled for next Tuesday night. 4:30 is dinner. 5 o'clock we'll start the information center with Jeannie Collins DeWeese, where we will learn more about it and decide what our next steps are. It's expected to go until about 7 o'clock.
You said 4:30?
Yeah.
4:30.
Thank you.
Is there anything anyone should do to prepare for that?
I will be sending out, Sherry will, or Kayla will be sending out a couple of articles that if you'd like to read ahead of time would be helpful.
And I can suggest going onto the VSBA website and looking at, they have some resources on their website to kind of get what policy governance is and just, look in, and it's kind of what I'm going to talk about with the work plan, so it will go hand in hand. Looking at what PG is and how it will affect us and change how we do board meetings and whatnot, and just kind of like get some questions beforehand, study. So. That's that.
Okay. And one of the things that, that happens with policy governance is a work plan, a formalized work plan that the board uses for the whole year. And so I will turn that over to you guys, Jen and Steph, who put this work plan together.
I knew you were going to make me talk. So I will apologize in advance for the spelling. I was kind of like listening to typing too fast. So I do have some comments from Pam, so we will update those. And she had suggested we move a few things around, and I don't know where I put the piece of paper.
Go through them?
Sure.
Would it be easier?
Yep, until I can find mine.
I suggest that we move, strategic plan had been in the draft for February, and we had planned to do that in January to keep them kind of 3 times during the year that are spaced out. So I proposed that. I also, so that would mean in February, we would delete the strategic plan update from the reports and presentations. And in February, we typically start our school program reports, which will include the continuous improvement plan on how we're doing for this year. So then we would delete school improvement plans because the continuous improvement plans are included in the school program reports. Under the action items in February, I think you wanted to say that you would be looking at the work plan for July of 2026 to June of 2027.
Yes.
Is a,
Yes.
okay. In March, I propose deleting the activities and athletic reports and adding that to April, so that activities, athletics, and fine arts are all together. Because we will need to continue our reports and presentations that we started in February, and typically those take a little bit of time, and so as not to chock full the agendas, but to spread things out, I would propose that. So adding school program reports, including the continuous plan, to March. In April, there's really no substantial change except for just some recommendations about spelling and such. Same for May.
Where were you moving the strategic plan update to March?
No, to January, because that was the original plan that we would do it in January and then
Moving it
again at
back
the end
up.
of the school year. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll do that in June, under the reports and presentations, adding, I'm sorry, it's already there, strategic plan update in June. And we'll have the full year's data to be able to share.
So the other thing that we did is, we pulled out, like, so we have the reports, and then we pulled out the action items, so then we can look at it, like, ahead for, and say, okay, we know we're gonna have certain action items in certain months, and, then that kind of helps the administration know as well, on top of the reports and presentations. At the moment, we do have, the dates of the committees in there, but that, if we go the route of policy governance, which is why there's an asterisk in the board development / education, then, that section may change. And we added, in various months with the community engagement, like January is board recruitment and budget forums. We did budget forums for 3 different months, as, we definitely need to be talking about our budget multiple times, and then we talked to put in sporting events and fine art events, and in time, we will hopefully have like a link that we can just go to and have that, so we can see it all in one spot. And then, lots of board development and education. We can definitely learn. The VSBA does weekly webinars, monthly webinars, and something that Jen had suggested yesterday, and I didn't have time at that point to look into it, but I can do a synopsis and have it be, so I can tell you guys or we can have on it somewheres what the presentations are. So, but it may be a link, because they're weekly, so it's a lot. And everybody should get, if they don't already get weekly emails from the VSBA, please say something, because there is lots of useful information and a lot of what Maggie does, a lot of stances and whatnot right now with Act 73 and board governance, recruitment, all that fun jazz. So, we, in April, new member onboarding, which is meeting with Pam, and just there's a whole process that we'll be going with that. Again, some of this stuff is how we're going to do it would be based off if we go with the policy governance route. So that's the good thing about work plans is, it's not necessarily set in stone. We can, it can ebb and flow and make additions and deletions and change things as we see fit.
Can I just add something that Kathy and I learned when we were talking with Jeannie the other day about policy governance?
Yes, ma'am.
One of the major, it was an aha for me, is that what happens is that after you have the information session, if you decide that you want to continue on this pathway, then the work begins at looking at policies.
Yes.
And so you go through and you revise and change and revisit the whole policy manual to write it in such a way to reflect how you're going to implement your policies through policy governance. It's only after the policy manual has been revised that you vote to accept the new policies and move forward with policy governance. Oh. And so in talking with Jeannie, she suggested, the possible timeline might be that you decide to move forward, you begin your training, you start revising the policy manual, and it could take a few months to do so. And that with the goal of, by the end of this summer, being able to adopt the policies and move into policy governance. And I think regardless of whether or not you decide to go that route, I think the work plan is a good document, because it really is kind of a calendar of events and things for you to know what's coming. Mm-hmm. So this can happen certainly regardless of policy governance.
And we already have a good chunk of the next work plan done. We kind of started on that first, and then when we decided to do the shorter version, so then we kind of went back. So does anybody else have any questions, thoughts, concerns, things that they want moved around? Yes, I know about the lovely spelling errors.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
And if anybody needs any, Jen knows how to make things really pretty, just so we all know. She's made my life a little easier yesterday. So I believe we have a motion to accept with knowing that I can, with the changes of like the spelling errors and moving the things that Pam had suggested around. So we can either do a motion on that, or we can move the motion to approve next week, is what kind of we had talked about. So,
Well, I have a question about that.
yeah.
So since this is an ever-evolving document, does that mean that every time something is changed, it has to be brought before the full board to be approved?
I think it's just using us knowing that we're using the work plan to guide us. I don't know that answer, actually.
I don't know that
I-
answer either.
I don't think it needs, I think I wasn't at that training that you had done. It was the second day of the retreat when you talked about the work plan. So I don't know if Bianca knows the answer to that. My guess is that it doesn't need to be an action item, but you had all talked about wanting to vote on accepting the action plan. I think given that it's a living, breathing document, you wouldn't need to have an action item. It's much like, and I see this not necessarily as different as what we give to you of here's a list of all of the board meetings and some possible topics that change based on how it happens.
So maybe the motion needs to be adopting a work plan structure?
I guess that's my question.
I don't know that answer, so my thought is, since we really are questioning that, is we table the motion till next week.
I do
It's-
not think that you need to adopt, like officially approve. That's my understanding from policy governance, even though I know you're not policy governance, but the idea of a work plan is that it is a living, breathing document that you use as a guide. Therefore, my understanding, and we could consult with Debbie Singiser if we wanted to make sure that's accurate, is that it wouldn't formally have to be an action item, but the board is essentially saying, we're gonna use this as a resource to help guide our work.
And we're going to make it available on the website for anyone who wants to see what the board is working on.
So we're not voting on it.
We're not voting on it.
I guess I'm a little confused because we've been talking about looking into policy governance, but yet we're going to vote on a item that you would use in policy governance. Is that true?
Yes,
Use it regardless of policy governance. Even if we wouldn't, we could still have a work plan.
I mean, essentially, the work plan to me, it's more in-depth, and it adds other items on there for us to look at and differently than like on the back of like our agendas where there's information, like it talks about, it has like each month what the topics are. So to me, this is just a more in-depth piece to the backside of our agendas. I don't know I don't know the answer because I'm not. So I think maybe we should wait.
In my experience, having been a principal with a board that was policy governance, their work plan looked very different from your draft work plan. Maybe not very different, but it was definitely different. So I think adopting a work plan, which I think was a goal that was developed during retreat, I think is separate from policy governance. I think if the board eventually moved to a policy governance model, your work plan would be very different in that it would determine like what policies is superintendent reporting on, how are we monitoring, and when are we monitoring those policies. And that is different than what I see reflected in the draft working document that would get you through June, I think.
So what I'm hearing is that if this policy governance is accepted, then this work plan is going to be changing to the work plan that goes with the policy governance plan. So I'm just wondering what we're doing
So
here.
the thing
with
is,
this.
One of our,
is the policy is, if it was decided to move to policy governance, it's going to take until the end of the summer to do a full-on switch. All of the policies are going to be revisited, speaking to what Bianca just described. So this is for December to June, just to get us through to the end of the school year. And at that point, it will have been decided whether the board is going to operate under a policy governance structure. So June until September, that's when the new work plan would be developed. And the the board decides not to, become a have a policy governance structure, it would still need to be redone. So, I mean, this makes agenda meetings so simple, like, it just reduces.
On its
a
own,
ton
it's
of work.
obviously helpful, yeah, because you
Yeah.
can clearly see what's on the agenda. I get it, as a work document.
Yeah.
But I feel like we keep tying it to,
That's why I have the asterisks though, because so this work plan is just through June, and it was one of our goals that we wanted at the retreat was to have a work
Yep.
plan.
Yep.
So at that point, we really hadn't had much of a policy governance conversation, so it's changed some.
yes, at the end of the day, this is till June. I get it.
Yeah.
We're not voting, so we're good.
Yeah, so do we have to do anything, because it's technically an action item on the agenda?
We don't have to take action just because it's
Okay.
listed as
Put
an
that on
action.
the record.
That works. Yeah.
Okay.
So back to does anybody else have any concerns, questions, thoughts? Things that they may want added? Okay. So Jen and I will get together probably sometime in the next couple days and make the changes, and I will send to Pam to have her kind of send them back out to everybody with all the changes.
And does it make sense to send it to Patricia to have it put on the website, or should we hold on that?
Once we have it all approved, then we can give it to the folks that would put it on the website.
Any new business? New business, no new business. No executive session.
Need for an executive session.
Yes.
Wow.
I would, is there anything?
No.
I would entertain a motion to
So moved.
adjourn.
Second. Aye.